You would think money buys everything: security, control, even immortality. But when Amanda Renshaw's eyes stayed shut for 2,190 days straight, her billion-dollar empire didn't blink once. The first time I saw her, she looked less like the ruthless CEO whose name once flashed across every business magazine, and more like a forgotten porcelain doll, immaculate, untouched, but fading under layers of dust. 6 years in a hospital bed will do that to a person. I was just the janitor. Correction, the black Janitora label stapled to me long before I had a say in it. My name's Lewis Carter. People like Amanda never noticed me when I swept the marble floors of her corporate headquarters. Back then, I was just a shadow with a mop. Funny thing is, I never hated her for it. Not until the night she called security on me for walking into the wrong elevator. The executive-only one. Her words that day still burned in my head. "Some doors aren't meant for you, Mr. Carter." I didn't spit back. I didn't rage. I just nodded, stepped out, and went back to cleaning the smudges off the glass panel, smudges I didn't put there. That was before the accident. Amanda's coma was the stuff of tabloids. One rainy night, a limousine, a runaway truck, a flash of headlights, and then silence. Her family kept her alive in a private suite at St. Clair's Medical Center, a suite bigger than the apartment I grew up in. Nurses rotated like clockwork. Doctors whispered about minimal brain activity and low recovery probability. The Renshaws kept paying. I didn't belong anywhere near her room. Janitors cleaned the general wards, maybe the lobby if we were lucky. But fate has a way of putting you in rooms you're not supposed to be in, sometimes literally. It happened on a Tuesday. The regular cleaner called in sick, and my supervisor tossed me a clipboard with her floor schedule. I walked in expecting another sterile room and another silent patient. Instead, I found her. The scent of lavender filled the air, a scent I later learned came from the expensive diffuser on her bedside table. Her blonde hair was brushed daily, her nails manicured, her sheets pristine. She looked like someone who might open her eyes at any second and demand a quarterly report. I should have just emptied the trash and left. But I froze. There was something unsettling about how still she was. Not just physically, but as if the world had moved on without her. Over the weeks, I ended up cleaning her room more often. Sometimes I'd talk to her while mopping. About the weather, about the broken vending machine on floor 3, about my granddaughter learning to read. She never responded. Then, one night, I found an old newspaper clipping framed on her shelf. It was Amanda, 10 years younger, holding a vinyl record at a charity gala. The headline read, "Renshaw donates rare jazz collection to City Museum." In the photo, her smile looked real, not the sharp, PR-approved one I knew. Something clicked. My father used to play jazz records every Sunday. I still kept a battered portable radio in my locker. Out of some strange impulse, I brought it the next day and played one of his favorites, Billie Holiday's "I'll Be Seeing You." For the first time in 6 years, Amanda's fingers twitched. The doctors brushed it off, involuntary muscle spasms. But I wasn't so sure. I came back the next day with more records. Ella Fitzgerald, Duke Ellington, Nina Simone. And every time, something small happened. A shift in her breathing. A flicker in her eyelids. By week 3, I'd become obsessed. I researched her past, dug through old interviews, pieced together her favorite songs from quotes she'd dropped in magazine features. Turns out, Amanda had grown up above a small-town record store her father owned. She used to help him alphabetize the vinyls. Maybe music was her lifeline. One evening, the hospital was quiet, too quiet. Night shift, hallways humming with fluorescent light. I sat beside her bed, radio in hand, and played "Misty" by Errol Garner. Halfway through the song, her lips moved. It wasn't much, barely a whisper, but I heard it. "Dad." I nearly dropped the radio. The next day, I told the doctors. They ran tests, checked her vitals, ordered scans. Possible neural stimulation, they called it, but their eyes betrayed something else: hope. And hope is dangerous. It spread. Nurses lingered longer in her room. The head physician started stopping by more often. The Renshaws who had been ghosts for years began showing up, all smiles for the cameras. And that's when the whispers began. Not about her recovery. About me. One nurse pulled me aside. "They don't like you being in here this much." "They?" I asked. She just glanced toward the hallway where Amanda's younger brother, now acting, was talking to a lawyer. I should have stepped back, kept my head down, let the doctors take over. But I didn't. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing her as Amanda Renshaw, untouchable business tycoon, and started seeing her as a person trapped under glass, waiting for someone to knock hard enough to break it. And I was going to keep knocking. I came in the next evening with a different plan. Instead of starting the music right away, I sat by her bed and just talked. Told her about the hospital cafeteria's mystery soup that tasted like damp cardboard. About the broken vending machine that now accepted hugs as payment, at least according to the night nurse, Lydia, who had a habit of making up ridiculous stories to keep us laughing. Still, Amanda didn't move. Her breathing was steady. Her face was calm. Then I pulled the radio from my bag. Today's choice, Sarah Vaughan's Tenderly. My father used to hum it when my mother cooked Sunday dinner. The first notes poured out, and I saw it again, a flicker in her eyelids, subtle but there. "Yeah, I see you," I whispered. "You're still in there, aren't you?" For a moment, I swore her mouth curved the tiniest bit. That was the night I became certain she could hear me. And once you believe something like that, you can't go back to pretending otherwise. The next few weeks were a strange mix of hope and paranoia. I kept my cleaning duties up, but I arranged my schedule so I could spend more time in her room. I learned which songs got the strongest reactions. Coleman Hawkins' Body and Soul made her fingers twitch more than anything else. Billie Holiday seemed to steady her breathing, but I wasn't the only one who noticed. One Friday afternoon, I was stopped in the hall by Victor Renshaw, Amanda's younger brother. Tall, slick hair, tailored suit so sharp it could cut glass. His handshake was the kind that told you exactly how much money he thought you were worth. "None. I hear you've been taking liberties with my sister's care," he said, his tone smooth but laced with steel. "I'm just playing music," I said. "Seems to help." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "My family pays for the best medical care money can buy. We don't need experiments from the janitorial staff." I bit back the urge to remind him that his sister's 6-year coma had persisted under the watch of his best medical care. "Look," I said, "if you want me to stop, I do." He didn't even let me finish. "This ends now." I should have listened. Should have walked away. Instead, the next night, I came back after my shift ended. Lydia had agreed to accidentally leave the door unlocked. Amanda was still as always. But when I turned on the radio and Misty began to play, her lips parted again, this time with more force. One word. "Lewis." My name. The sound ripped through me like a lightning strike. My knees nearly gave out. The next morning, I told Lydia. She clutched my arm, eyes wide. "You have to tell the doctors." But I didn't get the chance. Victor found out first. 2 security guards met me before my shift. "Mr. Carter, you're no longer assigned to the East Wing. In fact, you're no longer employed here." Just like that. 15 years at St. Clair's, gone. No explanation beyond policy violation. I wanted to fight it, but I didn't have the money for a lawyer. So I walked out with my mop bucket and my radio, my heart heavier than both. For a week, I stayed away. Told myself it was over. She'd never even know I'd been there. Then Lydia called. "She's declining," she whispered. "Her vitals are weaker. They've stopped the music." It felt like someone punched me in the gut. I didn't think. I just moved. That night, I pulled my old janitor's uniform from the closet, walked in through the service entrance, and slipped past security like I'd done it my whole life. When I stepped into her room, I froze. She looked paler, smaller somehow. I sat down, hands trembling, and turned on the radio. Billie Holiday's voice filled the room. Her eyelids fluttered. And then slowly, painfully they opened. It wasn't like in the movies. No sudden gasp, no dramatic sitting up. Just a faint, confused squint as her eyes tried to focus. "Amanda?" I whispered. Her lips moved. "Dad?" "No," I said softly. "It's Lewis." She blinked, the fog in her gaze clearing bit by bit. And then God help Mesh smiled. The machines beeped faster. Nurses came running. Lydia's jaw dropped. "She's awake," she breathed. Doctors swarmed the room. Questions flew. Did she know where she was? What year it was? Could she move her fingers? I stepped back, knowing my part was over. I'd done what I came to do. But before I could leave, her voice still weak, but unmistakable, cut through the chaos. "Don't let him stop you." Her eyes locked on mine, and I knew exactly who him was. Victor arrived within the hour, his face a perfect mask of concern for the cameras now clogging the hall. The Renshaw family framed her awakening as a medical breakthrough under the hospital's world-class care. My name never came up, But Amanda's didn't need a press conference to speak the truth. 2 days later, she asked for me. Publicly. Loudly. In front of reporters. "This man saved my life," she said, her voice stronger now. "Not the machines. Not the medicine. Him. And his music." You could have heard a pin drop. That moment lit a fire I hadn't felt in years. The story spread. People asked questions. About the hospital. About why I'd been fired. About why a woman who once ignored me in an elevator now defended me in front of the world. Amanda didn't sugarcoat it. "I was blind," she told an interviewer. "Not just for 6 years. Before that, I didn't see people unless they served a purpose for me. Lewis made me see again before I ever opened my eyes." I didn't cry often. But that day I did. The day after Amanda's public statement, I couldn't walk down the street without someone recognizing me. It was strange people who would have crossed to the other side of the road before now stopped to shake my hand. A barista gave me coffee on the house. A teenager with purple hair asked for a selfie. But fame is a tricky thing. It doesn't just attract kindness. It attracts enemies who smile with their teeth while sharpening their knives behind their backs. And Victor Renshaw was holding the biggest knife. I got the first call 3 days later. "Mr. Carter, this is Ronald Pierce, legal counsel for the Renshaw family. We'd like to offer you a settlement in exchange for a non-disclosure agreement." I laughed. "You think I'm going to sell my silence?" "It's quite generous," he said smoothly. "Enough to cover your retirement. And we both know the media's attention span is short. Once the next scandal hits, your story will vanish. Take the offer while it's still warm." "I'm not for sale," I said, and hung up. Amanda, still regaining her strength, called me that evening. "They tried to buy you off, didn't they?" "They did," I admitted. "Good," she said, her voice still a little hoarse but carrying a steel I hadn't expected. "That means they're scared. And scared people make mistakes." Her recovery became a spectacle. The hospital milked it for publicity, front-page stories about miracle awakenings, glossy photo shoots of Amanda in a wheelchair with sunlight streaming through the windows. But she kept steering the conversation back to me. "Lewis gave me more than my life back," she told one reporter. "He gave me a second chance to be a better human being." The public ate it up. But behind the scenes, Victor's patience was cracking. It was a Thursday when I found him waiting outside my apartment building. He was leaning against a black town car, the kind of vehicle that screams money and trouble. "Mr. Carter," he said, his voice dripping with faux civility. "I think it's time we had an honest conversation." I crossed my arms. "About what?" "About the fact that my sister's recovery is overshadowing the Renshaw name. Your little folk hero act might play well in the papers, but it's damaging our brand." I almost laughed. "Your brand? She's a human being, Victor, not a stock price." His smile didn't budge. "Everyone's a stock price, Mr. Carter. Some just don't realize it." The next day, someone leaked my employment record to a tabloid full of half-truths and outright lies. They painted me as an unstable, bitter employee with a history of inappropriate conduct. It was a textbook smear job. Amanda saw the article before I did. She called me furious. "They're going after you because they can't go after me without looking like monsters." I sighed. "Amanda, they have more money than God. You can't win against that kind of power." There was a pause, and then she said something that made my stomach knot. "Then we won't play their game. We'll make them play ours." A week later, Amanda made her first live TV appearance since waking up. It was supposed to be a puff paisea feel-good segment on a national morning show. But halfway through, she blindsided the host. "I owe my recovery to a man named Lewis Carter," she said, looking straight into the camera. "And I also owe him an apology. Years ago, I treated him as if he didn't belong in my world. That was ignorance, and ignorance is a kind of sickness too. If I can come back from 6 years in a coma, maybe I can come back from that." The host blinked, caught off guard. "That's very powerful. What do you hope people take away from this?" "That we see people for who they are, not the color of their skin, not the job they hold, not the doors society says they can't walk through." My phone exploded with messages. People from all over the country wrote to say her words had moved them. Some were hopeful, others were angry, but no one was indifferent. Victor, however, was not moved. 2 days later, Lydia warned me that hospital security had been told to bar me from visiting Amanda altogether. "He says it's for her health, to reduce stress," she whispered, making air quotes. I could have forced the issue gone public again, but Amanda called before I did. "Lewis, Let him think he's winning. I've got something planned. What? You'll see, she said. But you need to trust me. It happened on a rainy Tuesday. Amanda asked for a wheelchair ride around the hospital grounds, her first time outside in months. The Renshaw PR team thought it was for a photo op. But halfway through, she told the nurse to stop at the front gates, where a small crowd had gathered, activists, reporters, even a jazz band playing. I'll be seeing you. She motioned for me to come forward. I hesitated, but the crowd started chanting my name. When I reached her, she took my hand and raised it like we'd just won a championship fight. This is my friend, she said into the microphones. This is the man I trust with my life. And if you bar him from seeing me again, you'll have to answer to everyone watching right now. The cameras caught Victor in the background, his jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might shatter. That moment shifted everything. The story stopped being just about her miraculous awakening. It became about race, class, and the quiet power of human connection. Messages poured in. Strangers offered me jobs, donations, even places to stay. A record label sent me a box of vinyls for the woman who listened her way back to life. But with the spotlight came danger. Someone started following me, an unmarked car parked across from my building. The same man in a baseball cap showing up in different places. I told Amanda. She didn't hesitate. You're staying at my place. Her apartment, well, calling it an apartment felt wrong. It was a 2-story penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows, marble floors, and a skyline view that made the city look like a jewelry box. You sure this is a good idea? I asked. I've made a lot of bad ones, she said with a faint smile. This isn't one of them. Living there was surreal. We fell into a strange rhythm, mornings with her physical therapist, afternoons where I'd put on jazz while she did speech exercises, evenings talking about everything from our childhoods to our regrets. She told me about growing up above her father's record store, how he died before she could apologize for dropping the business to chase corporate success. I told her about my mother cleaning houses until her hands cracked, and my father teaching me every song he knew. It felt human, real. But the war with Victor wasn't over. One night, Amanda came back from a family meeting, pale and silent. What happened? I asked. She sat down heavily. They want me to step down from the company. They're saying I'm not fit to return, too emotional, too impulsive. They're using you as proof, saying I'm letting personal entanglements cloud my judgment. My chest tightened. Amanda, if staying away from me is what it takes to keep your company, she cut me off. No. I've spent my whole life choosing the company over people. That's over. She wasn't bluffing. The next morning, she called a press conference. The Renshaw board thought it was to announce her resignation. Instead, she announced she was returning to work and launching a foundation dedicated to racial equity in corporate hiring, funded with her own shares in the company. My time in that hospital taught me something, she told the reporters. A business is only as strong as the humanity of the people running it. And if that humanity means I lose my job, so be it. The room erupted. The board was blindsided. And Victor? He looked like he'd swallowed glass. That night, Amanda and I sat on her balcony, the city lights flickering below. You know this isn't over, I said. I know, she said. But it's a start. We sat in silence for a while, the sound of distant traffic mingling with the faint jazz playing from the speakers inside. For the first time in years, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The Renshaw empire didn't crumble overnight. People like Victor don't go down without dragging others through the mud first. In the weeks following Amanda's press conference, headlines split into two camps, some hailing her as a visionary willing to confront uncomfortable truths, others painting her as a fallen queen, throwing away her empire for a janitor. The latter always made my stomach turn, as if my worth could only be measured by the mop I'd once pushed. Amanda refused to hide. She returned to the Renshaw headquarters, her gait still slow from recovery, but her chin high. I went with her not as an employee, but as a guest. A lot of heads turned that morning. Victor was waiting in the lobby, flanked by two board members. You're making a mistake, he said the second she stepped inside. No, Victor, she replied coolly. I'm fixing one. The meeting that followed was closed door, but Amanda had asked me to wait outside. I sat in a leather chair, the hum of corporate life buzzing around, mephones ringing, heels clicking on marble, whispers floating like cigarette smoke. After nearly 2 hours, the door opened. Amanda emerged, her face pale but determined. Well, I asked. They gave me a choice, she said. Stay on as a figurehead while they run things, or walk away entirely. And she smiled faintly. I told them to take the company and choke on it. We walked out together, past the receptionist who tried and failed to hide her shock. Out on the street, the air felt lighter. They'll spin it, I said. Make you look reckless. They already have, she said. The truth is, I'm free. And I'd rather build something new than keep patching up something rotten. Her something new took shape faster than I could have imagined. Within a month, she'd launched the Carter Foundation named after me, though I argued against it. It's not just about you, she said when I protested. It's about what you represent, opportunity where people don't expect to find it. Breaking the unspoken rules about who belongs where. The foundation's mission was simple: fund education, mentorship, and entrepreneurship for people of color from working-class backgrounds. She threw herself into it with the same ferocity she'd once reserved for boardroom battles. And she dragged me along for every meeting, every interview, every ribbon cutting. Victor didn't disappear, though. One afternoon, Amanda got an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of papera photo of her in the hospital bed, unconscious, with the words "This is where you belong" scrawled across the bottom. She didn't flinch. Scare tactics, she said. I wasn't so calm. My gut told me Victor was getting desperate, and desperate men are dangerous. The breaking point came at the Foundation's first gala. It was a small event, just over 100 guests, live music, speeches. Amanda looked radiant in a deep emerald dress, her hair loose over her shoulders. Halfway through the evening, a commotion started near the entrance. I turned to see Victor, uninvited, striding toward the stage with a drink in his hand. He didn't shout. He didn't make a scene. But his words, delivered into a live microphone, were poison. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for the janitor who became my sister's favorite charity case. Gasps rippled through the room. Amanda stepped forward, her voice steady but sharp. You've been trying to tear him down for months, Victor, she said. And all you've done is show the world exactly who you are. He smirked. And who's that? A man so afraid of losing control that he'd rather destroy the truth than face it. The applause that followed wasn't polite, it was thunderous. Victor left that night, his face red, his empire intact, but his public image bruised. A month later, an investigative piece exposed shady dealings in Renshaw Industries' overseas contracts. He resigned quietly. Amanda never gloated. She just got back to work. Life settled into something new. I moved into a modest apartment, not far from Amanda's place, but far enough that I didn't feel like a permanent house guest. I took a paid role at the Foundation Community Outreach Director, though I still introduced myself as the guy with the radio. We still met every Sunday to listen to records. Sometimes we talked about the past, sometimes the future, sometimes nothing at all. One evening, as Billie Holiday's voice drifted through the room, Amanda leaned back and said, "You know, if you hadn't played that song, I might still be in that bed." I shook my head. No, if you hadn't wanted to come back, the music wouldn't have mattered. She smiled. Maybe. But either way, we did it together. The last time we talked about her coma in detail was on the anniversary of her awakening. She'd invited a small group of Foundation staff to her place for dinner. Someone asked her, "Do you remember anything from those 6 years?" Amanda paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. "Not much," she admitted. "But I remember a voice, and music, and the feeling that someone was sitting beside me who saw Minute, the CEO, not the patient, just me. And that was enough to make me want to open my eyes." I didn't say anything. I just sipped my wine, letting the warmth spread through me. The world moved on, as it always does. New scandals, new headlines, new stories to fight over. But every so often, someone would recognize me and say, "You're the guy who played the song." And I'd nod, because that's who I was. And that's who I'll always be. Not the janitor, not the miracle worker, just the man who wouldn't stop knocking until the glass finally broke. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.